I genuinely thought that this heater might kill me, but I tested it anyways. I almost didn't make this video because when I first opened up this Chinese heater, I was not impressed, and I honestly didn't trust it enough to run it. This is going to be one of the most honest reviews you've ever seen on a diesel heater. So quick transparency, HCalory actually did send this heater in for review, and there is a link that is going to be down in the description, but I do not make a penny off of any heater sold, and they are not seeing this video before you do, which is something they asked me to do. They also thought that they were going to pre-write a script for me. That's why all the reviews for this are pretty much identical, and they glaze right over things that I noticed right off the bat, and that is build quality. All right, so first thing that I noticed right out of the box was issues with fitment and finish. First thing I noticed was there's a little bit of bubbling on the paint up here on the case, and then I immediately noticed that, you know, the fitment of the outside case, this stamped steel part up here, which is not aluminum. The base is aluminum. This is actually steel. This is a magnet to show that. But you can see where it's kind of not really, doesn't fit right. Kind of the screws are kind of pulling it down back here. The gaps are uneven and stuff like that. Not really anything that's too big or too crazy. But then I started looking at, you know, the hardware that comes with it. And first off, this is a muffler, which they call it a muffler. It does muffle a little bit, but what this actually is this is a spark arrestor, and that means any sparks that go through the exhaust, which there are, you can actually bang that out and you see some of the stuff that it caught, but this will hopefully, in theory, catch them and not ignite anything that they might blow onto. So basically, diesel heaters ignite diesel directly and then heat a chamber, which then they blow air over that chamber, a heat exchanger, and then that warm air is then sent into the room. Notice I said room. Stick around for that because they are being a little bit unclear on how and when and where you can use these. You are not supposed to use these in an enclosed space. We'll get to that. So my thought, you know, is safety for CO. Carbon monoxide. And looking at the quality of the exhaust components, I was like, man, that's not gonna seal. This exhaust pipe has like this weird bend in it right on the seam. You can tell where it was joined. And it's not a perfect circle at all. And I kind of knew that running it outside was gonna be a problem for me because I don't have a 12-volt source of electricity, you know, like a battery or something outside. So I had to run it inside. And that's the only place I really could run it because the AC power supply is not waterproof. By the way, before you grab this spark arrestor out of the box, make sure you're wearing gloves. This thing will cut you. So at this point, I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to actually refer to the manual to try to figure this out and get, you know, a little bit more info on it. And oh my God. What? English, okay. All right, so this is what we're looking for. What? That actually looks very important. Yeah, look, this is what we're looking for. This is the important part. The exhaust appui. Is this Frisian? This is not Deutsch. There's Deutsch. It's almost like I'm reading Deutsch. So after reading the safety instructions and seeing them actually having a person run one inside of an enclosed area, we go down to number 6 and we see where they cover their butts. Do not use heater in an enclosed or unventilated place. Google what an enclosed area is. I honestly cannot believe nobody else mentioned this. So at this point, I get really, really discouraged. Discouraged with the product, discouraged with the company, and honestly, even discouraged with my fellow creators who actually reviewed this before me, except for one video, maybe 2 videos. Well, I was actually forced to use this thing, and I was kind of debating on if I wanted to even run it anyways, like I had said. I was forced to use this in well below freezing temperatures. Probably unfortunate for me, but very, very lucky probably for the diesel heater, because then I was actually able to see the good in it. So real quick, the real reason why I was actually forced to do this is, if you don't know, I actually run a small automotive repair shop out of my garage. And I book accordingly to the weather, but sometimes you gotta book no matter what the weather is. And I had one of my best customers actually need a whole transmission on their 2011 Chevy Impala, and they heavily rely on the car. So stuff like that, I want to get in and out in 2 weeks. And at that point, when I'm taking a transmission out, there's actually no way that I'm going to do that without, you know, kind of rebuilding the engine or doing stuff like rear main gaskets, oil pan gaskets, stuff like that. While it's out and doing stuff like that, you actually kind of need a little bit of heat just in case if I have to spray some paint that I want to set, or, you know, a lot of the gaskets, you need to put silicone on them and you want that to set at a better rate, and it just sets better. And also it's just a lot better to work in a comfortable environment as opposed to being cold. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I hooked all this up and ran it with safety being 100% in mind. So we're going to go over one more gripe that I have, and then from there on out, it's all of the good stuff that actually changed my mind on this heater. But before we get to that, now they did send me a video of a guy spraying it, and there are other reviews of people spraying this. It's because that's what they want you to show. Now, they're claiming it's in IPX4. They're claiming, or an IPX4 equivalent. They have not actually gotten the actual IPX rating, so they are asking the reviewers to say that it is an equivalent, but it 100% is not waterproof. There are holes basically right in here that go down to the actual unit, the igniter and all that itself. Now, there is a video that I'm gonna put at the end of this video that shows a person who knows a lot more than I do about these things, and he's actually opening it up and he's looking at all of the pieces inside. That was kind of an issue, you know, that I had with it, is like, if the outside is not very good, what does it look like on the inside? So after watching that, I've concluded that that's where all of their good materials have gone to, and it gave me a little bit more confidence to actually run this thing. You can actually see that I already had a pre-existing hole here. I would imagine it was from a wood-burning stove or something along those lines. So it's a pretty good size hole. I actually cut the top and the bottom off of a can of soup and stuck that in there. And now what that does is, you will notice that I've never taken the exhaust tube off of this at any point in this video. And that is because, well, really, I can't get it off. And one of my biggest things that I can actually suggest to people who actually use these is use exhaust cement on all of the joints that you're going to be making. You can get it at like AutoZone, parts stores, stuff like that. There are really cool things that people actually do with the exhaust tubing on this. They like send them into heat exchangers and stuff like that, and, you know, increase the efficiency. But I don't suggest doing any of that without making sure all of your joints are properly sealed. Also, you'll notice that it's been pointing up. All of the other reviews will tell you, and they're very, very right about that. This needs to either come out and go down, or this needs to go absolutely straight. Honestly, this exhaust pipe should go completely straight to avoid turbulence. Anytime you bend any type of tube with air going through it, it creates turbulence. That also goes for the fresh air outlet that actually blows heat out of the machine. So now, and I actually never put a hose clamp on this because I want to be able to take this off and put it on as I please. So basically, with our hole already there, now I could just kind of take the dong and just stick it right out there. So now, kind of hard to see, but the way this works is it actually doesn't touch anything at all. That exhaust gets very, very hot. And so basically, that's where it went, and that's where I ran it. I did have the tube on it kind of pointing out to where, you know, I needed it, but that was about it. Real quick, the one gripe that I do have, the last thing bad I'm gonna say about it, is do not expect this cap to be, you know, to not leak. It 100% most certainly does leak. It's not really round on the inside where the filter goes into, and on that filter, there is an actual seal. There's a little O-ring, and it just does not seal. And if you crank it down hard, meaning the cap, you know, wanting it not to leak, you're gonna have such a hard time getting it off. And that's how we figured out that the paint is actually very thin on it. You might have noticed that little mark up on top. So basically, set it up just like this, filled it up with fuel, and turned it on to 10, and it was about -10 to -12 degrees Fahrenheit. And I ran it for about 2 hours. Now during that time, it sucked fuel down like nobody's business. But getting to one of the good things, HCalory actually has an amazing app that runs this remotely via Bluetooth. And I noticed on there that it said that it was set for high plateau mode. And high plateau mode basically means, you know, set for mountains elevation. Now our elevation is about 202 meters above sea level. And so I turned that off and I actually set the elevation to the proper thing. And then this thing became so efficient. I don't know if we can really do what they say it does. It can do close to it, but that 62 hours, I think on one tank, that's on a very low setting. And there was no way I was gonna be able to have this on a low setting. So the first thing, the app, that is absolutely amazing. The other thing that I really like about this is it comes with this little remote that is actually a carbon monoxide detector and a thermometer as well as a remote. This I really like, and I think it's really slick. You can actually change between Freedom units and Canadian units there as well. In here it is 61 Freedom, and that would be 16 Canadian. The number one thing that really changed my mind on this is 100% the fuel efficiency, but not only that, mostly the amount of heat and how well this thing actually works. It got it from negative 12 degrees in here to about 50 degrees in maybe 3 hours, I would say, running on a, you know, continuously high setting. Through the whole time of me repairing that vehicle, I spent, you know, probably about $10 to $15, and it took, you know, a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. And so, you know, that was running it with only this as the primary heat source. I had talked to like Dan at Beat Up Builds, and I talked to a buddy of mine, and they were like, you know, what if you actually started off with a propane heater or something, kind of to get the temperature up, and then see if that kind of, you know, can keep it going. Well, actually, this was able to bring it up, what was 45 degrees, no, if it was negative, 60 degrees within 3 hours, and it's about a 700 square foot garage, and it's not very well insulated. It is connected to the house, so I think there's a little bit of residual heat that comes from there. That probably helps a little bit, but I was honestly shocked and blown away by how well it actually works. My ultimate conclusion on these things, like I had said, it had really scared me at first. And my thing is, try not to use any of the accessories that HCalory, Vevor, any of the, you know, Chinese diesel heater manufacturers send with them. You can get like different exhaust pipe. The exhaust is my main gripe with it. You know, that's where a little bit more money and materials needs to be put. And I think that more people need to know about exhaust cement and, you know, different ways of sealing it, because you don't want CO getting into, you know, where you're actually occupied. Now, other heaters do create CO, but over time, especially if you're not running this thing on high, you have to run it on high for about an hour, or like a half an hour to an hour, like once a week, so you can actually clean it out and blow out all of the carbon. If you're not doing that, this thing is just gonna build up carbon more and more and more. And if you have any leaks, that's where it's gonna escape, and then it's gonna become more and more and more dangerous. It's gonna smell more and become less efficient. So, you know, I would definitely say throw away the accessories that the manufacturer sends with it. Try to do something better as far as you can. Like I'd mentioned with the exhaust. Now, this dryer vent thing that they send with it, there's kind of a problem with this because I think this is a 3.5 inch, and you can really only get 3 and 4 inch. So this you might have to order online. The exhaust tubing, I would imagine you could get online too, but then it's gonna be questionable, the quality. So other than that, the heat of the exhaust is one thing that I would really suggest people to, you know, be concerned about. I did see another reviewer who had it going through a hole that was the exact same size and diameter as the exhaust pipe itself. And at that point, you cannot run it on high, which, like I said, you have to do once a month or once a week. If you do run it on high, it's a huge fire risk just waiting to happen. That exhaust tube gets well over 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, any type of insulation, anything like that that might happen to get or fall, you know, behind the walls, might happen to fall on it, is gonna get ignited. The exteriors kinda is what it is. I think it's made well internally. I definitely think they have to fix the manual a little bit and maybe get a little bit better accessories. But other than that, I mean, I do suggest it, especially if you're looking to heat somewhere small for very cheap, and you know, you're not really asking too much of it. You know, you don't live in a frigid Antarctica or whatever.